I hope everybody had a wonderful new year and ready to attack the year and with a lot of energy. We are. Of course, at the beginning of every year, one of the first things that businesses do is a cycle count for the end of last year. So I thought it would be appropriate for our first webinar of 2020 to discuss how to create counts and how to manage the counts and things to look out for in the counts. So just kind of from a high level, I'm sitting here in order time. Everybody can see my screen. And this is the warehousing menu. And I can search my counts right here. And so these are all my counts. And I only have one that I'm kind of doing right now, which is the California warehouse. But I'm just going to go into one of these counts that I've done in the past. And basically, the process is quite simple. We create a count. We populate the quantity counted, okay, which would give us a difference. All right. And then we change the status to approved, and we finalize the count, and it creates an adjustment. Okay. So again, create the count, perform the count, populate the quantity counted. If the item is not counted, you can just leave it blank. So there's a few items here that are neither zero, but we just never counted it. And so we just left it blank. You change, this one is already changed, so you change the status to approved and you click finalize. Now, if you need to reverse the count, there's a definalize button too, which will delete the adjustment. So the important thing to note about a count is a count does not adjust inventory right away. It's just essentially a worksheet that you're using to perform your count, and only when you finalize the count is the inventory actually adjusted. Now, to create a count is quite easy. You can either go to the count list and go new count, or you go to the warehouse menu and again you create new count. And there are a few fields here that are quite important. We'll start off with the location. Obviously the counts are location specific, and you're only going to count a specific location, which includes all the bins in that location. Okay. And if you have not set up your locations with bins yet, I suggest that you go to the KB article about locations and then set up your all your locations, right? So they could be anything, and then within each location you can set up bins. Okay. The other important is the date, and the date that we want to use here is what we call the as of date, the date from which you want to count, where really you performed your count. So the quantity that we're going to display on the count is reflective of the quantity on hand at the end of the day for the date that you selected. So if you selected December 31st, it's midnight or a minute before midnight, all those transactions get added up, and that really results in the net count. Okay. Then we also have the account. And for here, we should not select an inventory account. Okay, the inventory is going to be adjusted by virtue of the inventory account will be adjusted by virtue of when you set up your item, you selected an inventory account item. Sorry, when you selected your item or created your items, you selected an inventory asset account. That's default, okay? So you don't have to, when you're selecting your count, you certainly will not select inventory here. You're going to either select a cost of goods account or an inventory adjustment account, an expense account. Should discuss if you're adding inventory for the first time, then it may be equity account or another balance sheet type of account, but certainly not the primary inventory account. Then you have other things like class and memo. If you're creating an account for the first time and you have nothing in the system in terms of inventory, you would check this box which says add items with no quantities. So basically that would add every single item on your list so you can count it. Now, I already created this count over here, so I'll go to it. And you see here that I have a couple of fields displayed. I used the columns to add the ID column, okay, and the difference column, and I also added the description of the item. Okay, there are other columns that you can add. Of course, all the custom fields are also included, and the item group and stuff like that. So you can put that. And of course, you can also export this to a CSV, and you can use that to either import. You can use that to import your accounts, which I'm going to be showing you. So once you add the new columns, just refresh the count. Okay, and then you can kind of scroll through the items, or of course, if you want to, just say I want to filter by a specific bin, so I can filter by a specific bin, or I can filter by a specific item. So I can look for, just the one item that I want. Okay. Alrighty, so I'll clear that filter now. Now, the big question is, of course, we can sort. Of course, you can sort, counts. You can do it by bin, etc. This quantity in system is not the available quantity. It's the quantity on hand. And that is kind of the biggest source of confusion that a lot of people encounter. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So here we have, and I'm just going to rearrange this. This is my inventory list. So I'm just going to put these together here. And I'm just going to remove these. Just don't want these for now. I'm going to add, just going to remove all my custom fields, and I'm going to add available, committed, on hand, and another one called in transit, allocated. I'm going to add an in transit. I'm going to add those for a reason, because they're, in terms of how order time calculates the difference between on hand and available. So available is really what we're selling, and to a lesser extent what we're shipping. But on hand could be a number of different things. For example, if you have a ship dock that is not marked as shipped, okay, we call that committed. And that is included in on hand. As you can see here, this first item right here, I have available 0, committed is 9, so my on hand is 9. And the logic behind that is, if I have a ship dock that hasn't left the building, it's still on hand from an accounting point of view and from a financial point of view. Okay. So if you do have that reserved and somewhere in the corner, make sure that you count that as well. Transfers and receivers that are in transit are not on hand. They may be available depending on your preference. Sometimes some people want to show in transit and available, but they're not on hand because they haven't arrived. They're in transit. Okay. And then finally, components on a work order that you've allocated. Okay. You haven't started production yet, but you've allocated. You press the word allocate and allocated. Those are on hand. Those are on hand. So they might be loose next to the workbench. Those should be counted as well. Okay, so very important point that I'm making here is that the quantity that you're going to see in the count is the quantity on hand on the inventory list, not available. Okay. A good practice would be to make sure everything is shipped, or at least you know what is shipped and what is still allocated on the work orders. It's pretty easy to identify those, so I'll show you on the inventory list. I can do a bunch of filters, so I can filter by a location, or I can also filter show me everything committed greater than 0. Okay, so I have this full list here, and I can see that I have a few committed. So I'm going to go to this item over here, which is on the floor, and I want to find out which one of my ship docs are committed. Well, I go here to the transaction, my transaction. So this is the item. We all recognize this is what's called the item detail. It has the inventory. So there it is again, just for that inventory. I can go to the transactions and do another filter. So this time I'm going to filter again by committed greater than 0 for a specific item, and then there they all are, all the ship docs. So I can just go into here and change the status to shipped, and that would be it. Okay, so that would no longer be committed. Okay. Now you can also, if you can also get a report on that details as well. If you look at the inventory movement details report, you can also filter. I believe you can filter by whether it's committed or not. Or is that another report? Okay. All right. So getting back to performing the count. So now we need to perform the count, and basically performing the count is updating the quantity counted. So I can actually click into here, into any one of the columns, and just put a value in here, and then click outside. I can also do it, if I wanted to, kind of like that way, so it's quick. Okay. And then I click outside the box to remove it from the edit mode. Now we can see here that we have a bunch of differences now. Okay. So that's doing it manually. The second way to do it is to import. We do have some articles on that, but you notice here I use the ID column, and then I can export this list, and this is what it gives me. I just kind of removed all the other ones and just focused on the top 2. But this is just basically the same item, the bin, and then I put in these 2 quantity counted. All right. So once that's done, notice I need to add one field here. So I'm going to put in the count number, and for that I'm going to put 18 for both. Okay, because they're both, I want them both to be mapped to this count. Right? So through the ID, through the count, I have all that. Now really, oops. Okay, so once I have my spreadsheet, all I have to do is go to the admin section, go to import, go new import job, select count line, and the count item. So I'm going to upload that, and it's going to map a whole bunch of things, but because I have the ID, I don't have to map anything really. I just have to map the ID and the quantity counted. and that's enough to update the count. Okay. So you can see here 2 updates. If I go into my count, it's been updated. There may be some circumstances where an item might not be at all on the count. For whatever reason, it may have appeared. So in order to do that, all you have to do is click this little add button here. Okay, you put in the item. If it has a lot number, you put in the lot number too. All right, the bin. There's my bin, and then how much I counted. So that is fairly straightforward. Okay. So that's the way you add a count. Now the count is pretty flexible. You can actually, using the count, you can also change a bin. So let's say this item here, 111 1 is in bin CAF, and I want it to be in another bin. So the first thing I do is basically say that the quantity counted is 0 in this bin that I want to remove. So it's going to remove 3 from that bin. And then I do add. I add the item. So there's my item. I add my other bin. So let's say B2, and I put in the exact quantity. Okay. So what's going to happen is that it's going to adjust it out of CAF, and it's for 3 units, and it's going to add it into CAB2. Okay. And that's really kind of how we do that. And basically the rest is just populating the count. As a final note, you can also use All Orders Mobile. If you have All Orders Mobile to count, there's an article which I'm going to paste into the chat on that. And you know, that kind of goes into scanning the using the scanner to the All Orders Mobile scanner to use, you know, obviously the scanner where you can scan the lot numbers, etc. The count is more like a spreadsheet type of in the program itself. It's more like a spreadsheet type of environment or worksheet, whereas All Orders Mobile and soon the Order Time Mobile, which is going to be on iOS and Android, will have the same functionality. For now, it's on All Orders Mobile, and there's a good video on here where we demonstrate that. Okay. So as I said, once you establish the date and the count, right? You can't really, once you start counting, you can't change the date of the count or the location. You can change other variables or other properties, but not those two. Okay, it's locked. All right. And so when I'm finished, I approve the count, all right, and my finalize button appears. So if I don't have that, I don't have my finalize button. If I approve the count and I finalize, just press it once. Takes a little bit of time, and boom. Okay. So that is basically, you know, the count. You'll notice here, if I go to adjustment, you'll see that this one is actually, the net is 0 for the count. So because we adjusted in and out, and so now we have the adjustment, and the count is done. Now if I change my mind and I want to adjust it, I can definalize the count. Okay, so now I definalized it, and we're back to where we started. We can now change back to processing, adjust the count, and refinalize. Are there any questions? I hope I was pretty succinct at that demonstration. It's easy once you kind of get a hold to it. Just remember, when you update, it's the easiest way of doing the update. You can just add the ID column, populate your quantity counted, and re-import. All you need is the ID and the quality counted. That's all. If you don't have the ID, then you have to put in the item, the bin, and the lot number. If you're using lot numbers and the item does not have a lot number, simply put in the word NA under the lot number. Okay, but the bin and item are required. So is the lot number. So that's why you have to put that in if you do not use the update with the ID method. Michael, is there any other questions?
There was a question in the chat. Did you answer that with the
Yeah.
scanning?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the All Orders mobile scanning.
Okay. And I'll send out that link along with the response email that'll have the link to the video recording of this webinar. And that'll be sent out next week. So this webinar was being recorded and we'll be sending it out.
Right. We also want to make sure that we attach also the import, count line import. We have a webinar on that, I'm sure, or a video on that. And then kind of, how we calculate on hand and things like that.
Got you. We just got a question in. Can you see the value of adjustments?
Once you finalize the adjustment, because we don't know at this point what's being finalized and whatnot. On the adjustment, there is a total value. It's one of the columns called the value amount, and that is a total value that's being adjusted. So right now there isn't. I think we can add it in the future, the total value, but right now it's not there. But it's on all the reports and stuff like that. Let me just think here for a second. And it's possible.
You probably have a calculated field too to do the total after you've got the column, right?
I mean, it's possible. I guess I can add like the cost to this, to the count lines, so that way it'll be visible. We can do that.
I'll add that to the notes. Another question, we use laborers on site and they submit monthly inventory counts. I export to a CSV and I give them an inventory template. If I wanted to use the mobile app, do they all need their own app? That might have been two different questions, but would they all need their own accounts in order time?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you send them the spreadsheet, they wouldn't. If they log in through the All Orders mobile, it requires a user account. So it does require a user account. You're logging in as a user so we have to authenticate that user through the mobile account. That's why you need to log in. That's in terms of how many licenses and stuff like that. That's kind of a question that you might want to set up a account user or whatever. But certainly that person needs to be a user to log in and do the count. I mean, it's just as easy if you're going to do it that way, just to create a count, send them the sheet, have them updated, and re-import it yourself. That's another option.
And we'll have a demonstration video for the order time mobile app soon for iOS. The next question was, does the beta testing need internet at all times, or can it be docked at the end of the day or at the end of a count?
The beta test for the order time mobile, which we do, which right now does the order picking. Basically, you download a sales order and you create a ship doc. you can plug it in. I think, I'm not sure, I think you can plug it into your computer, which would give the or maybe go close to the Wi-Fi, maybe in the office.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'd need a Wi-Fi connection. You have to download the order to the app. Then you'd have the sales order there. You could do your pick and everything with the app, and then you'd have to get an internet connection again to send the order so that it would update on the order time side.
Correct.
So it should probably have internet at all times. Just so that you're always connected.
It's a good idea, but it's not absolutely necessary. But I can tell you that as we develop more of the order time mobile app, which will potentially include the count, there will be times where we're going to have to go back to the server to get missing information. Now the count is one of those things that we'll be able to load all at once. But once we get into more of like sales orders and things like that, then obviously we'll need a connection. It also works. On a regular phone connection. Like if you have internet, data service on your phone, it'll work there, obviously. Right?
Yeah, you can always pull up order time in your mobile web browser and use it just regularly from any phone.
And also the the order time mobile. So. If you're on the road or whatnot, it'll also pick up whatever data service you have. So that's another way of attaching to the internet.
Is there any other questions? Once again, a recording of this webinar is going to be sent out to you in your email next week, including some helpful links to everything that was referenced here.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Everybody have a great day. Of course, if you need us, we're here. Just a click away. Go to the home screen. Click on the support. Send us support ticket. Get back to you as soon as possible.